Good afternoon, all. On behalf of IoT Academy, we welcome you all for the 8th session of National Level Faculty Refresher Program on Quality Teaching and Strategies in HEIs. Let me introduce the resource person of today's session, Dr. Suchitra Naidu. Dr. Suchitra is currently working as a Dean, Academics, and Associate Professor in Department of Biotechnology, Loyola Academy, Hyderabad, Telangana. Her academic qualifications include BSc, MSc, B.Ed, and PhD in biotechnology. She is the recipient of 5 gold medals in MSc, International Distinguished Teacher Award by International Institute of Organized Research, and Top Performing Mentor Award. She has to her credit 1 patent and 7 research publications in UGC CARE and 4 in Scopus Index journals. She has delivered numerous lectures on basics in plant biotechnology, food safety with respect to consumption, and future of food. She has also completed numerous research projects. We welcome you, ma'am. And with this, we hand over the session to Dr. Suchitra Naidu. Ma'am, please.
Good afternoon to everyone present here. I wholeheartedly thank IoT Academy for setting me a platform to share my thoughts on student psychology in higher educational institutions. So before diving deep into this topic, I would like to recite a quote. Teachers who love teaching teach children to love learning. I repeat, teachers who love teaching teach children to love learning. My whole concept of today's content delivery, it revolves around this quote or this topic. Okay, so first of all, teaching is not like a corporate job. It's a continuous process. I find it is very difficult to restrict a student from reaching beyond the classroom, especially when she is eager to learn, he or she is eager to learn, or is someone who needs a little more help than others. So the extra attention goes a long way, in an individual's life. So we shouldn't be so mechanical. We also have to, in this profession, we have to be a bit more compassionate compared to others. So now moving into the concept, ma'am, can you please change the slide? Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, the first one. What exactly is meant by psychology? What exactly is psychology? So in the words of Sir J.B. Watson, psychology is the science of behavior. Okay, there are many different perspectives from which, you can view the human mind and behavior. The next slide. Human behavior, it is mostly influenced. Human behavior is understood in terms of all these 5, which I've shown here. We'll see one by one. So the first one is biological perspective. So when I say biological perspective here, it seeks to determine the psychological aspects of human behavior, looking at evidence from genetic and neurological studies, as well as studies on the immune system. It is generally known as biopsychology. Now, for example, how, when a person is affected with some kind of trauma, so how the trauma affects the brain and how this affects the behavior of an individual. For instance, if you have when you have twins, now in these twins, you can see how they behave. How exactly is their behavior, whether they behave based on the genetics or based on the influence of environment. Okay, that is one. And sometimes, suppose this person is suffering with any kind of degenerative brain disease. How does it impact him? How does he act? So how your genetics and brain damage, how it influences a person to behave, how they are linked to your mental activity. That is all about biological perspective. So here there is influence of genetics, there's influence of your neurological studies, that is your brain and your immune system also. So it is purely biological. So this is a biological perspective. This is in demand. Biopsychology is in demand these days. There's a lot of research going on in biopsychology these days. Next, coming to psychodynamic theory. So here under psychodynamic theory, it is actually referred to as an approach wherein there is a study of psychological forces that underlie human behavior. Now, what are these psychological forces? That is our feelings and emotions and how we relate to our early experiences, our past experiences. Based on the past experiences, how we respond to the incidents that happen in our life. So that is all about. So psychodynamic perspective here is where we are, our behavioral pattern depends upon the emotions and feelings that we have experienced in our past. Moving on further is behaviorist. So here in this behavioral perspective, no, so according to this, the way we behave and learn, it can be explained through our interactions with the environment. Our actions are always response to stimuli, which either can occur naturally or because of a learned response. For instance, suppose sometimes you come across a person, you know how to respond to that particular person. If you are used to that person, you always know how to respond to him. Suppose you find a stranger, then we behave based on the words of the stranger, we behave. Okay, so basically here actions are always in this particular kind of perspective, behavioral perspective. Here our response is usually to the stimuli, which can occur either naturally or because of a learned response, because we are already used to that person. Since all behavior is a response, behaviorism, it also suggests that anyone can learn to perform any action with the right conditioning. Conditioning here, when I say conditioning, it means what kind of values you have in your mind, what are your principles, how you want to lead your life. So based on that also, our responses matter a lot. Even if the person opponent to you is screaming at you, you can really, instead of reacting, you can respond. So all this comes from the value system that we are made up with. And actually in this behaviorist perspective only, going deep into psychology, you have classical conditioning and operant conditioning. We don't have to go in depth. Next coming to is cognitive theory. So here, as the term indicates, cognitive, this is a mental structure, all the mental structure and processes involved in behavior, such as attention, perception, memory, thinking, decision-making, problem-solving, and even language processing. All this is cognitive, everything that is related to our brain. Such processes are basically whichever is related to our thinking patterns, brain, where there's involvement of brain, they are all labeled as cognition. It is determined by individual's thought, then their inner judgment, their personal motivations. All these factors play an important role under this particular type of perspective, cognitive perspective. Okay, coming to the last one, that is humanistic. A humanistic perspective. Here under humanistic perspective, it studies the whole person and the uniqueness of each individual. Humanistic approach, it generally emphasizes the personal worth of the individual. This once again, what kind of value system that we have, our creativity, our nature. In simple words, the nature of the human being comes under humanistic perspective. So, the human behavior is, you can understand any person's human behavior based on these 5 different perspectives. That is biological perspective, psychodynamic, behaviorist, cognitive, and humanistic perspective. Okay, now students in higher educational institutions, they fall under categories of late adolescence. Ma'am, next slide. If you could go to the next slide. Here you can see, as clearly mentioned, stages of adolescence. We have got 3 stages of adolescence. Okay, so we directly, now because it is the topic given to us was about higher educational institutions. So higher educational institutions definitely falls under the category of 18 to 24 years old. So they are all late adolescents. The students who are studying in our college are all in the category of late adolescents. So students in higher educational institutions, they fall under the category of late adolescents. And adolescence, it is a season of fast-paced development. It is characterized by inconsistence and variable growth pattern, volatile emotions. You're always bubbling up with emotions, volatile emotions, boundary testing behavior. Okay, they set their limits. Then a lot of socialization, increased socialization, and they're always eager to create a personal identity. Okay, and it's in a word, if I have to say, it is transition to independence. The moment they get into this late adolescence, it is a transition to independence. Till then, they're still in the school, they're still in the intermediate, where the teachers, the parents, still we have influence. They feel that they are still under our control. Once they come into college, it is just a pathway. It's transition to independence. So we are all going to talk about late adolescence here. Ma'am, next slide. Now here, if you can see the behavioral pattern of adolescence, okay, in this slide, you can see you have students of various types. You want student want to be the adolescent student. He wants to be more independent. As I said, you transition to independence. They still don't want to be. When we say do this, do that, they say no, I can do it in this way. They have alternatives. Then they have mood swings. Because I said you why they have mood swings, because they are here to make up. 1 second, ma'am. 1 second.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am. Sorry for the inconvenience. Next, coming to this mood swings. I said you, when does a person have this mood swings? Because they want to create an identity of their own. The students or the children of this age group, they want to create an identity of their own. They want to make a name in the society. That's why they have mood swings. When they can't accomplish that, no, so they get into this mood swings, and they are attracted towards the opposite sex as the hormones are also developing. This is a default mechanism in them. Then they are aggressive. Once again, when their needs are not met, they become aggressive. They are argumentative. They don't settle. I said, they have options. They come with variety of options instead of listening to what we used to say as it was done previously. Then changing one's appearance. Okay, they want to be on par with the society, on par with the world. They want to follow all the things that are being followed in the Western world, or that one which is in demand now. So they try to change their appearances, and they worry about a lot about their physical appearances, they're trying to groom themselves much better. It can be with regards to their dressing sense, with regards to their body type, with regards to their, it could also be with in terms of communication skills. You could see there's a drastic change in students once they enter into college life. Their way of talking, the way of dressing, the way of responding, everything changes. And they refuse to do course. They don't try to do any household work because they have so many distractions going on. So all the time they want to, they want to present themselves as a new person to the world. If they are not happy with the previous past of themselves, they want to present themselves as a new person to the world. And so in keeping all that in mind, they don't feel like doing the routine work at home. So refuse to do course, not only household work, even the regular day-to-day class work, what we say also, they say, okay, they feel, okay, at the end of the day, just before the exams, I can go through it. But right now I have to make an identity in the society. So they try to upgrade themselves and then decrease communication. Sometimes when they slip into a depression, then they don't feel like talking to anyone, or sometimes they try to set standards and feel that they shouldn't talk much. So you also have decreased communication at that time. And then rebellious attitude. A rebellious attitude is always, because this is a phase in their life where they are bubbling with identity crisis to an extent. They want to make up. They want to show the society, they want to show the world that they also stand, they also have a category of standing. So at times, they also exhibit this rebellious attitude. That's it. So these are the behavioral pattern of adolescence. You can find these many different types of attitudes in our students in the college. Next slide, ma'am. Yeah. Now, what are the different types of, here, if you can say, we are having 8 different types of students in the classroom. So firstly, you have students who complain a lot. Okay, whatever it is, whatever content we deliver. Okay, they could either complain in the sense, it is nothing concerned with the topic that we are expressing. It is always with the sometimes with the infrastructural facility, or sometimes with the tone of our voice, or sometimes the explanation is not clear. It's nothing concerned with the content that we are delivering. It is the method how we are delivering. They're always into it. So you find a set of students only sitting for that. That is complaint students. Then you have anxious students. Anxious students. Now, for example, most probably you can see when we are talking about life science concepts, okay, wherein we are saying, when we are talking especially something where you have to, you have to visualize how, suppose I'm talking about some genetic disorder, I'm talking about a position in the gene which is defective, and so the student has to visualize. So at that time you have anxious students who visualize things, and then they come up, ma'am, what happens if it is not like that? So they always move one step ahead of what content we are delivering. So you have anxious students, you have independent students, they're least bothered, like, whether ma'am teaches or no, I'm going to do my job. At the end of the day, uh, this is the syllabus is prescribed to me. So I either go to the library or I sit in front of the net and I do my job. Independent students, where they are not really dependent on the teacher. Then you have snippers. Now, snippers, these are actually the most skilled people. They are skilled, but the way they show up in the class is as if the teacher can't identify who is a snipper in the class. Means no, they are actually skilled and they also perform well, but we don't identify them. Means they don't show it off. Everything is quite silent in the class. Means when the teacher is asking question, they are not answering. They are not answering. Normally, when we ask questions, when the student answers, we get to know that yes, these are the bright students, or these are advanced learners, these are slow learners. We get a total output of the student. But here, snippers are always, they like to be, behind the scenes. They like to be behind the scenes, but they top up in the class. And then you have heroes of the class. Most probably they sit at the back bench and, who try to distract the class. And you have attention seekers. Attention seekers either doing anything positively or negatively, try to seek the attention of the teacher. Now, negative, most of the time it is the negative frame of mind. That is, either by distracting someone or making some kind of weird noises, or just asking the teacher to go out either to drink water, something like that, attention seeking, so that, or crack some joke or ask some, inappropriate question, so that everyone, focuses on them. So such kind of attention seekers. And discouraged workers, they are, they feel that they are not uh, fit to be in that class. Actually, means they feel the subject is too difficult for me. I don't understand this subject. I shouldn't have taken this subject. Once after they're getting into this, they feel that they are not on par with the subject, and it was a wrong choice made by them. Then you have silent students. Students, it's I don't say that they work on their own, but they're just silent. They're just dormant. They are dormant, and they mind their own business. They come to the class, they listen to the class, they write, they do their work. Sometimes they don't do their work also, but they're silent. They don't distract the class. They're just silent. So like that, you have many more types other than this also, but these are the most prominent 8 types of students that we see in a class. Next slide, ma'am. Okay, what are the problems faced by students? There are n number of problems, but whatever I have focused over here is the ones which are very common. Okay, now the first one is the finance condition, that is a student loan. Okay, if you can see in the figure, the first one is student loan. We all know, as the cost of higher education, it continues to rise. Most students are forced to take out loans in order to finance their education. So that is a stress. Either they do it, so they are always stressed for it. So what can they do? What is the alternative? How can they overcome it? They can go for scholarships. Nowadays, in the college itself, there's management scholarship. There is also scholarship given by certain government, certain private agencies, and also by government bodies. So students, according to their aptitude, can apply for the scholarships, or they can go for a part-time job. It all depends upon how they manage their time. If at all they have to go for a part-time job, they have to know time management, or else they can apply for scholarships, which is given from different sources. Unlike the previous days where we had only government scholarship, now it is not like that. Even the institution also gives management scholarship. You also have government scholarships. You have private body scholarships. You have n number of scholarships these days. Based on the aptitude of the student, they can go for it. Then this next problem faced by the student is, the internals, the grades, midterms or grades, means, all the internal exams. This is another challenge college students face. The pressure of academics, the student may be a good student in high school, but the demanding academics of the college can put them under pressure. There's a change in the pattern of the way how the college functions compared to the school. So this creates a lot of stress on the newcomers, especially during the examinations. And apart from that, there's a demand for good scores and parent expectations and, higher studies, the university admissions, next level of university admissions. All this, it only increases the challenges for students. Some student might, as well have learning disabilities, like dyslexia or dysgraphia, dyscalculia. So all these, the issues with the education system is every student is judged equally, irrespective of their intelligence or emotional quotient. The government or the education body is not in regards with their IQ or EQ. They are only concerned, each and every student, slow learner, advanced learner, every other student is judged equally, irrespective of their IQ or EQ. Now, these difficulties affect the students of this, it affects the academics of the students, and they act as a huge challenge in their progress.
I have a doubt.
Now, how to deal with academics as a student or as a parent? How do we deal with them? So what we can do is, the student should know how to manage time effectively on daily basis. They have to keep their body fit also. They have to eat healthy. They have to take care of themselves, especially during the exams. They have to study or revise on daily basis. They have to prepare their timetable in such a way that whatever is dealt today in the class, they can prepare it on daily basis. They can ask help from their professors for a better understanding. They have to surround themselves with, like-minded people, supportive people who will keep them motivated, so that, they don't feel dejected when they don't understand any topic. So in this way, the student can cope up with the stress with regards to internals or grades. Then you also have relationship here. Now here, with several new people from different parts of the world in the college, it is very easy to get attracted or develop feeling towards someone. So for this, before getting into a relationship, it is always advisable to take guidance from parents or mentors before confirming anything. Take good time and then arrive at a conclusion when it comes to relationships. And the most important problem faced by student in higher education institution is, bullying. Now, what exactly is bullying? Bullying is, it is an ongoing and deliberate misuse of power in relationships through repeated, it could be verbal, it could be physical, or it could be social behavior that intends to cause physical, social, or psychological harm. Any student can be a target for bullies. There are factors that some students are more vulnerable to being bullied. Now, what are the factors that the student can be bullied? Under what factors? Somewhere the student behaves or looks different, okay, or the student is very introvert, or he is non-assertive, or he's having any kind of depression or anxiety, or he's lacking quality friendship. He's always a loner. He doesn't mingle with students, with his classmates, or he displays higher level of emotionality, very emotional. Just one word of teacher, then he or she is into tears. So we're highly emotional. And suppose a person or the student is exposed to any kind of family violence, or the student is disabled, some kind of disability, or he's having a history of trauma, All such things could be the reasons for a student to be bullied. Okay, so the best way is, the student, whenever a student is bullied, it is always advisable that we as teachers have a look at our students. We should be aware of not only their academic standards, but also about their psychological feelings. When you talk to a student, you also should know about, not only gauge his academic standard, but also try to understand what is his emotional level, what is his EQ. So how is he able to face the society? If he isn't, then how could we cope him up in being on par with the other students? Then the other one is peer pressure. A peer is a person, within a specific a social group, or someone connected to a person, based on an age or on similar interest. Peer means the ones with whom we work day in and day out. It could be friends, it could be people who work together, or any such thing. So peer pressure occurs, when a peer, when your friend or a group of your friends, they influence or pressurize a person to think or act in a certain way. They force them to act in a certain way. Now, for instance, you could say the person is not habituated to drinking. He's not into any substance or alcohol abuse, but the peer pressure, all his friends are drinking, so they force his friends. So this is quite happening. Or you will look, this is a very cool act. When the person says, this person gets influenced by him, and then they get into drinking. So peer pressure is always there. So most of the time, students getting into illegal drugs or into alcohol, all this is only because of peer pressure. Why do the peers do this? They do this, it is one kind of satisfaction when his other friend also is joining or accompanying him in the act that he is doing. He's forcing him, whether with intention or without intention. They've just forced their friends to be on track with them. So that is peer pressure. Out of peer pressure also, most of the students lose their value system and get into bad habits. Then coming to self-esteem, this is a a, a very important concept for people who are in the higher education institutions, students studying in the college. The self-esteem is nothing but, to describe a person's overall sense of self-worth, or personal value. In other words, it is like how much you appreciate and like yourself. So till your early adolescence, you're just going with the wind. You really don't analyze yourself. But once, when you come into college, when you talk to people, when you interact, when you start networking with people, this concept of self-esteem develops in the student's mind, and they try to find different ways in promoting it or upgrading it. So the takeaway point over here is, the teacher should know student psychology in terms of their abilities, interest, attitudes, needs, and the stages of development and previous level of learning. So it's not just like robotically we come, we deliver our content and go back home. It is not like that, but we also should understand them a bit deeper, because we are not dealing with robots, and neither we are robotic. So we have to deal with them personally. That connect between the teacher and the student should develop, so that the student comes out with his problems and we can help in helping out them from their problems. So, this helps the teacher in understanding the psychology of the student, and we can redefine our classroom activities. Once we get to know the student, both academically and also psychologically, we can redefine our classroom activities. We can understand how to conduct the class, and our lecture could be more effective. Next slide, please. Okay, psychological problems faced by students. So the first one is procrastination. So this is not a problem only faced by students. Most of us also face it, procrastination. So what exactly is procrastination? Procrastination, it is unnecessarily and sometimes even voluntarily we delay despite we know that we have a deadline and we have to do it. Then also we delay. We are also aware of the negative consequences that we're going to face of it, but just like that, unnecessarily or voluntarily delaying a job is called procrastination. Here it tends to reflect a person's struggle with self-control. Okay, so when we procrastinate, or when we keep on postponing things, no, it causes a lot of psychological distress. Uh, the basic reason for procrastination could be a common element of fear and perfectionism also, to an extent. Like, you keep planning of doing everything very perfectly. So there is always this, you procrastinate things either due to fear, or in order to make it very perfect, we keep on postponing things. No, I am going to do this job once I get all the data. And once you get the data, then you plan for something else, because you want to make your presentation perfect. You keep on waiting for things to come in online. So the two important reasons for procrastinating anything is fear and perfectionism. Actually, it makes a person want to do every task flawlessly. It is actually a block in getting things done, and the end result is procrastination. Actually, in procrastination, it is associated with high level of anxiety and depression. Suppose, repeatedly you keep on procrastinating, you try to gauge yourself in such a way that, in the near future, suppose 10 tasks are given to you, and all the 10 tasks you have delayed it, you have procrastinated it. So, it leads to anxiety and depression at the end of the day, at a part of your life, because you're not doing anything properly. And so that there's some kind of anxiety and depression in us. So procrastination is because of two important things, fear and perfectionism. And if you are procrastinating it continuously, it becomes a habit to you, then you can fall into anxiety and depression. So next, coming to low self-esteem, we have already discussed anxiety and stress. I'll be coming forward. In my next slide, I'll be talking in detail about anxiety and stress. The next one is weak communication. Now, weak communication is, see, sometimes we see our students, actually, we think that they are not behaving properly with us, but actually they fail to communicate. They don't know how to communicate, and we take it as a wrong behavior. We consider it as he's full of attitude or ego, or he's quite rude, arrogant. We take it under those headings. We label that student, but it is not so. Actually, the student doesn't know to communicate properly. Okay, what we sometimes see as a failure to behave properly is actually a failure to communicate properly. If the student knows to communicate properly, anything, even a rude statement also, he can put it in a very polished message and tell us, and we will take it. We will accept whatever he is telling us. So the only drawback here is the student doesn't know to communicate. Okay, it could be in terms of language, it could be in terms of tone. Your tone of your voice also plays a very important role. Even the rudest of rudest statement can be told in a moderate tone, which does not sound so harsh on anyone. So the test of learning psychology is, whether your understanding of situations you encountered has changed, not whether you have learned a new fact. See, by knowing all this, in today's topic that we are covering is, we are trying to find out what is the psychology of a student in a college, psychology of a student in a higher education institution. So when we get to know the psychology of the student, it is very easy for us to deliver our content for them in the class. Okay, so when you learn psychology, when you say, yes, I'm aware of the psychology of a person, you understand how to behave with him. Next time when you're meeting a person, when you're aware of a person's psychology, how this person behaves, whether this person is short-tempered, or whether this person is rude, or whether this person is, procrastinating things always. When you know a person's real nature, you know his behavioral pattern, it is easy for us to handle the situation. So the actual learning of psychology is understanding the situation that you have encountered and how you're going to manage that situation. Okay, we are not going to learn something new. By knowing the nature of the person, you know how to act and respond to that particular person. That is the essence of this topic given to us today. So we not only knowing the academic ability of the student, know the psychology of the student, so that you can modify your teaching pattern. You will get to know how to deal with the student. Most of the time we see in the class, there are some students, whatever you ask them, whether you ask them a question which is related to academics, or whether you ask them a question which is not related to academics, you always get one blunt answer. They just stand up and say, I don't know. I don't know for everything, with academics, without academics, everywhere. So here this person has to be first looked into the psychology of the person. You have to know what exactly he is feeling. So once when he's out of that psychological feeling of his, then it is easy for us to put into our academic content into his head. Because when he's always his brain is always loaded with certain other concepts, it is difficult for us to put in our new concept, our academic concept, into his mind. So first clear off his preconceived notions that he has in his mind. By understanding his psychology, try to remove away those, so that we can feed in our data. There should be some empty space in his mind to give our data to him. Okay, next slide. Now, coming to the top, mental health challenges faced by students in higher educational institutions. So firstly is a family dynamics. This plays a very important role. Even though the student is staying in the hostel, or he's staying as a paying guest, whatsoever it is, family dynamics always plays a very important role in the student's life, especially when he is a teenager or an adolescent. These days families are experiencing significant stress and functional discourse, marked by unparalleled changes in family structures. Home is an environment for many young people which represents a place of instability and emotional upheaval, where security, caring and nurturing are depleted, or they are not existing at all. Most of the time we have separation, we have divorce, we have death or abandonment, or so this removes one or both parents from the family. The family is not complete. So this lack of attention, when either of the parent is not there in the family, there's lack of attention and affection, that creates an impact on the child. So there's subsequent emotional and financial difficulties of a single parent. It strains the family dynamics. So this can this can push the student towards substance abuse, or domestic violence, or emotional or physical or sexual abuse, or mental illness, all such things. So a complete family is where you have both the parents. Additional bonus is when you have grandparents, when your family is complete. Okay, whenever there is something, some part is missing in the family, that creates an influence on the student, and he is unable to concentrate properly in the classes, and he can fall into other activities like substance abuse, or any kind of violence. Okay, next one is anxiety. So anxiety, plainly speaking, anxiety is the mind and body's reaction to stressful, dangerous, or unfamiliar situations. Okay, so it is a certain level of anxiety is always necessary. Even in a normal individual, a certain level of anxiety is essential to keep us alert and aware. But there are people who suffer from an anxiety disorder. We also experience anxiety, but that kind of anxiety keeps us on track. We try to do things good to an extent. But what about the people who suffer with an anxiety disorder? How do you make out, what are the common symptoms of students who suffer from anxiety disorder? They're always irritable. They don't concentrate. They have trouble in concentration. They have always feeling very dizzy, excessive sweating or dizziness, and shortness of breath, and stomach ache out of tension, high tension, headache, stomach pain, muscle pain, or all such things. These are the symptoms that you can see. Sometimes they also have these are the symptoms which you can see in their body, and sometimes Like, for instance, there is a death in a family. A normal person who has no anxiety will cope up immediately. Might be after a month, he's back on track. Okay, but people who have anxiety issues, it takes long time for them from coping up from their existing situation. Suppose there is something traumatic in their family, it takes long time for people who are suffering with anxiety to get back on track. And they're always in constant fear of failure. Whatever event is given to them, whatever task is given to them, they are all, the first negative concept that comes into their mind is, they are always, what if I fail? So that is one thing. And they feel quite uncomfortable. There's a lot of discomfort in social setting for them. And their mind just goes blank, they become speechless. And sometimes, under extreme cases, you can also see panic attacks. Okay, with lot of what do you call, arrhythmia type, lot of high breathing, thumping, and with this you can make out the person is suffering with panic attacks. So there are many effective treatments of anxiety. Most of the college students, they have this anxiety issues. As I told you, they want to make a stand in the society. They are more into anxiety. So there are effective treatments for anxiety. You have every college has a counselor, so that is the first line of defense. The counselor can treat them. But if it is too bad, then they definitely have to, based on their type of anxiety that they are facing with, you have different types of counselors, then they can go for such health practitioners. But the normal ones are, they can go for lifestyle changes. They can skip caffeinated drinks like coffee, and they can exercise regularly. They can avoid, if at all they don't get sleep and they're taking any medication, they can avoid those medications. So these are some of the lifestyle changes. Or else they can go for meditation. We call this as mind body approach technique, wherein they can go for medication. They can use techniques, mindful techniques. They can go for mindful techniques where you can ease your muscle tension, and you can promote calm by listening to some soothing music. And um, when all this is not working, there's also psychotherapy, which is actually related with your cognitive behavioral therapy. It teaches people to challenge and reframe distorted or unhelpful anxious thinking. The How your thoughts are influencing your feelings and actions, all this is read in depth, and they try to give you some suggestions where you can overcome this. And the main thing is, the ones who are in anxiety, they don't have, they can't be calm, they can never be peaceful. So with the help of the psychotherapy, there are certain techniques wherein they play these techniques on your mind, and they try to make you be at calm. They try to keep your mind and body at calm. And if all this is not working, the last resort is medicines. So some short acting drugs, we call them as benzodiazepines. You can go for it. And all these serotonin reuptake inhibitors, these are the drugs. Low dose of antidepressants, or SSRIs we call. These can relieve anxiety depending upon the situation. Most of the time it is, but all these should be taken only in presence of a practitioner. So this is all about anxiety. Anxiety can be treated if it is a normal level of anxiety, but if at all a person is suffering with anxiety disorder, which comes due to some genetic defect, then they definitely have to meet a practitioner. Next one is depression. Depression, we are also depressed. It's not only that the students are depressed, we are also depressed depending upon certain situations. So depression, it manifests in varying degree, from general symptomology to a clinical disorder, means from common symptoms to a big clinical disorder also. Symptoms, they occur in 4 general domains actually: emotional, cognitive, physical, and behavioral. Your depression comes from these, it occurs in this four general domains, that is emotional, cognitive, behavioral, and physical. Um, Basically, it is the mood disturbance. The mood disturbance is the most predominant feature when you're into depression. Typical symptoms of depression is, there's change in appetite or weight, sleep. So when we notice such changes in our students, instead of always asking questions only based on academics, we can also ask them what exactly is the reason why you're losing your weight. Or when you find immense dark circles on their face, you could ask them what happened. Aren't you sleeping properly? Or when you find the person who was quite active previously is showing some decreased energy level, we can ask them what is the reason for it. Or the student suddenly feels, there's a feeling of worthlessness or guilt, or the person finds it very difficult and answer certain very simple questions also. So we can just, during our mentoring sessions, we can ask them. This tries to create a connect between the student and the teacher. And so that once all this is removed from the student's body, this kind of depression is removed from the student's body, there's more space in the student to understand the content that we want him to learn. So it's not only we have to connect with them academically, we also have to connect with them psychologically. Okay. um that was about depression. And then you have substance misuse. And now substance misuse or substance abuse, this appears to be etiologically linked to the complex interactions of genetic predisposition. Okay, it's sometimes, it just happens. There's no peer influence on us. It just happens. We ourselves feel like taking it. So that is genetic predisposition. So it's somewhere in our genes. And sometimes psychological vulnerability or socio-cultural influence. As I told you, most of the time it is your peer influence only. Like, take it. You look cool. If you drink, if you smoke, you will look cool. So, in order to be on par with my friends, to to showcase myself in the society, under the influence of my friends, people start drinking. So it is not only substance, it could be alcohol, it could be anything. So abuse, substance use, it is basically associated with you. How could you make out that the student is taking either any kind of narcotic or he's into alcohol? How can you make out? He's absent to your classes, and there's definitely poor academic performance. Apart from that, the common symptoms are he has slurred speech. They can't speak properly. Initially, the person used to speak properly with you, but once he is into this substance abuse, he is having a slurred speech. Means, it is not stammering. Slurring is not stammering, but they don't know what they're speaking. When a drunkard, when he's totally, when he's completely intoxicated, how he speaks, that is called slurred speech. Speech, then you have those red eyes, bloodshot eyes, or impaired coordination. What he's talking and his actions are not in sync. So that is a prominent symptomatic feature that a student is into substance abuse. And then fear, anxiety, okay, some kind of suspicious behavior of the student you can make out. And sometimes the ones who are into substance abuse, they're always into financial crisis, always in search of making money. We can make out. And all of a sudden there's a change in his friend circle. Okay, he was friends with someone else, and when he got into the substance abuse, he's totally left that friend. So we have to keep monitoring our students, with whom they sit in the class on daily basis, with whom they are good friends. All these things also, when you look into, you can make out that there's some change in the student, and why he has suddenly changed his friends, or his activities have changed, or his hobbies have changed. We can make out, and we can guess that the person is definitely into something which is not correct for him. Then coming to suicidal ideation or intent. Suicidal ideation is, it is a where the person is planning about his own death by his own hand. Okay, he is planning for his death by his own hand. And most of the time students experience this due to relationship issues, due to stress, frustration, doubt, or uh, something which once when what they have thought, when they are not in a position to receive that, they go for suicide. And at that point of time they are in the urge of committing suicide. But once when so that's why a student should be thoroughly monitored all the time. When you find, because all today if I'm depressed, tomorrow I will not go to attempt suicide, I will take some time. So once when there is a change in the student, by looking into his behavioral pattern, we have to closely monitor him so that he doesn't commit that act of suicide. So always monitor your students. Then here, if I have to talk about the warning signs of suicidal attempt, is his speech. He always will speak in a way like he's not interested in living anymore, or he talks as if he's a burden for others, or else just like there is no point in continuing in this life. He doesn't find anything lively, everything is very morose for him. So in his speech only you can identify that there is some kind of suicidal tendency in his mind. And then coming to his mood, um, you know always anxiety, irritability, um, then some kind of depression, some kind of humility, and rage, always in the extreme ends. He's always in the extreme ends. Either he's totally very dull, or he's always laughing continuously, is always crying continuously, he or she, whatsoever. So complete extremes of mood. And then coming to the next thing with which you can make out is the behavior, or what kind of behavior. They just withdraw themselves from friends and family, and they don't feel like meeting people. And their habits of sleeping, their habits of eating, all this is not proper, not in sync as they used to do before. And they are into abuse, against drugs abuse or alcohol abuse. So all these are symptoms wherein a person may commit suicide in the uh, coming days. So these are the top mental health challenges. So by looking into all these six, these are the six main ones. Apart from this, also you have many problems that students are facing, but these are the most prominent ones which can cause harm to the student. So we have focused on it. And then, ma'am, next slide, please. And coming to the consequences of this mental health issue, in which way it is affecting, how it is affecting an individual, and how it is affecting the society. So mental health problems, they can affect many areas of students' lives, reducing their quality of life, academic achievement, physical health, satisfaction with the college experience. College life is totally different, so they don't have that proper satisfaction. And it impacts their relationships, with the friends, with family, all this. So this is definitely going to have a long term influence or long term consequence on the student himself, and also on the society. So how it is going to have an influence on others is that your family members, your friends, your family members, the faculty, the staff, they are all personally affected out of concern for that particular student. Okay, when the individual is traumatized, the ones who are closely associated with the individual is also traumatized. So the depression and anxiety can have harmful effect on relationships and work productivity. Then the societal thoughts can affect the larger campus community. Then suppose a student is staying in a hostel, the roommates, okay, or his classmate, his benchmate, they will have profound grief over student suicide and the suicidal behavior. So in that way it is affecting others. The person is suffering, in which way it is excuse me, how it is having a consequence on others. In the same way, what is the consequence on the institution, okay, on the campus in which he's studying. So the campus also feels the burden when students are having some mental health issues or difficulty. When you have when the students are not faring well, when they come failing in their exams, there's a dropout from the college. So the admission proportion goes down. And what do we do? What is the use of the college having poor student retention? Okay, so when we don't have good quality of students, then that is also not going to fetch us any laurels to the college. So the institution is going to be in loss with regards to fee, with regards to alumni donations, then with regards to the quality of the students. Okay, so we can't do any new things, any innovations or entrepreneurship skills can't be expected from students who are having such psychological problems. Then in that way, it is going to affect the institution. Then it's coming to the community and society at large. So all students only make the society. So the community is negatively affected when students are unable to finish their graduation or their degrees, means they are not properly qualified. So when they are not properly qualified, they don't have those skill set to face themselves or to place themselves in the competitive job market. So in that way, you don't have skilled labor in the society. So in that way, it is affecting the society. So just imagine how the mental health or the psychological conditioning of the student plays an important role. It not only affects the student, but it also affects the neighbors, the peer group, the family, the faculty, the staff, whoever is around him. And it also affects the institution and society as well. Next slide, ma'am. I guess that's an end. Thank you. Thank you. So that was all about my content. If anyone has any doubts, you could please clear it out.
The session is open for discussion now. You can unmute and interact with ma'am, or you can post your questions in chat box also. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all.
My takeaway point over here, ma'am, is only one thing. To whosoever is listening to this, my takeaway point is that uh, we don't have to only, give academic information to the student. We have to connect with the student by knowing their psychological capabilities, in which way they are feeling. When you can connect with the student, when you look at the student, ask them how they are feeling. When we take up the attendance on daily basis, we look into the student. When we get into the class, we take their attendance. When we take their attendance randomly, just like robots, instead of calling their numbers, why don't we call their names and look into the student and try to connect with them? Like, how are you feeling? What happened? Why were you absent yesterday? You look quite down today. What's wrong? When we talk with them, they come out with their problems. So when we connect with them, it is easy for us to deliver our content. When they like us, then only they are going to listen to whatever content we want to put on them. So connectivity is more important when we are delivering the content. And we always have to keep in mind, we are working with students who are live individuals. Unlike, some software professionals are working with machines. We are working with live individuals. So we have to be connected and share a good network with them before delivering our academic content with them.
Any queries? You can post it in chat box also.
Ma'am, if there are no questions, can I leave, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. On behalf of IoT Academy, we thank Dr. Sujitra Naidu for the informative, interactive, enlightening, and enriching session, ma'am. We thank you once again for the amazing and excellent presentation, and we thank you for enhancing our knowledge with a commendable presentation, ma'am. We thank you very much for your efforts. It was an amazing session.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, ma'am. I thank all the participants for joining the session today. Kindly submit the feedback form using the link that will be posted in the chat box. Thank you all. Thank you, ma'am. It was an amazing session, ma'am. We thank you very much for your efforts, ma'am.
Thank you.
Please submit the feedback form using the link that has been posted in the chat box. Thank you all.